We're ready, Kelsey. Ready when you are.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. First day of February. Fantastic. So this is the February 1st LGBTQIA plus Intersectional Task Force meeting. We will start with some introductions. We'll do popcorn. I can start. My name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns. I am the chair of this task force and a member of the Human Rights Commission. And I live in Ward 4, and I will popcorn it to Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Fox. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission, and this is my first time attending this task force meeting. I use she, her pronouns. I don't know if I said that. And I live in Ward 3.
Awesome. Thank you. And good evening. This is Gretchen Bennett. I'm on the staff at the City of Salem and the liaison to the commission and use she, her pronouns.
Well, thank you both for being in attendance. All right. So moving into public comment, Gretchen, did we receive any?
We did not, although I guess I will just share, I did have the opportunity to speak with someone at a youth and family organization today who knew I was going to be staffing this task force tonight and talked about how much they would hope for youth and young adults that there's opportunities for mentors, for places to gather, like community spaces where people can just come and be amongst the LGBTQIA plus continuum. They were just really speaking to the need to help youth and young people who are kind of learning adulting and learning how to be to just have those spaces. And so I just thought I'd share that, but that was kind of an indirect public comment, but no, I haven't received any formal comment this evening.
That's awesome. Did they offer any suggestions of like places that could be?
Actually, they operate a day center for people for part of the day, and they commented that if there was a management provider, like people could come to their space and do groups and if there was a management partnership, but there would need to be staff and an organization in charge, for example, to be able to facilitate that happening. I think the late afternoon and early evening generally was open at their location, for example. So yeah, I think if there was an entity or a partner out there interested in that kind of thing, there could be a location.
Interesting. I'm wondering if Hope, as the commission kind of youth liaison, may have some thoughts on how, if that would be of interest in the community for youth. Yeah, so that might be something that we bring up at our meeting. Laura, do you have any thoughts?
Only that it sounds like something that would be very impactful, and it's an interesting intersection with the idea of safe spaces. While I know that program is prescribed and that's not something that we can do at this time, something like that for youth feels maybe like that's maybe a bite-sized thing that we can address.
Yeah. So we'll bring it up at our next meeting. I think that's a really interesting thing that we could look at offering. Cool. Okay, so moving into approval of the minutes. So we have minutes from last meeting to approve. Is there a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
Well, I wasn't here. This is Laura, but I would motion. But I don't know if Gretchen, were you here? Do you have a
Yeah, I was just remembering that, Laura. They do prefer someone make the motion who was there. And so, Kelsey, I think that falls to you. You two do constitute a quorum because your seated membership is 3. But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, I move to approve the minutes from last meeting. Is there a second?
And that's
Laura.
okay, Laura. Laura could second, I think.
Can I second? Okay,
think so, yeah.
second.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. Any dissent? All right. Seeing none, those minutes are approved. And then moving into discussion of task force structure. So this is something that Gretchen and I talked about. Laura, I know this is your first meeting, but I still would be really interested to hear your opinion and your perspective. So the task force, I've been a member of this task force for probably about a year. And membership has kind of been like off and on. And with the kind of change of the safe spaces project and that kind of moving more towards a partnership with Chemeketa, I am really curious to learn not only the board's opinion about this, but also this task force opinion on what this task force looks like moving forward. Does it continue in how it looks now, or do we look at a different structure? My thoughts are kind of that there were 2 main works of this task force during my membership, which was the Safe Spaces project, and then also doing the Trans Day of Remembrance. So outside of that, there hasn't been too much. And that's not to say that there can't be, because we can definitely look at more projects, more events, things like that. So I guess my question to this group, and I'll bring it up at the Human Rights Commission meeting, but do we kind of disband this task force and move into a temporary committee that comes up around Trans Day of Remembrance to help plan that event? Or do we continue with this? So I'm curious to hear both of your opinions.
I can.
Well, this is Laura.
Oh,
again.
Laura, please go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Gretchen. I was just really going to say that I am excited for the opportunity to partner, and I would commit my time with whatever whatever track this takes. But having not really had the experience, I'm not sure that I have a lot to offer in terms of what it looks like, although it feels like an underrepresented group, and I would feel sad if if it went away, just because I think it's important. But other than that, that's my only opinion.
I can offer 2 extra pieces of information in case that's helpful. This is Gretchen. One is just looking back over the years. I think the task force has met for, at least like 6 or so years that I can think of in recent memory, and additional projects that they took on. I remember there was a development of a video that interviewed people in our LGBTQIA plus communities from the standpoint of what local people would want agency professionals, in this case it was law enforcement professionals, to know about respectful interactions with the population. And so that was a project that that this task force took on. There was also an interest in trying to gather information and resources to be able to put together sort of a compilation of what's out there, what is available for people. But that never really completed. I think we gathered some things, and then I think that's about the time COVID started, which really reduced the number of activities that we could really find, especially in person. So that kind of went away. But I was just trying to think of other things the group has done. The only other thing I could offer is there does seem to be a challenge with size. If the group, I've noticed when the group is up, at times the task force has been up around 5 or 6 people, and that seems to work pretty well because, you know, inevitably people have things that come up when their schedules and they miss meetings. But when you're down to, I think you're down to 3 people, and so you like 2 this evening, it can be rough to keep momentum with so few, because all it takes is 1 or 2 people to have an unavoidable conflict, and then there's no meeting, and then it sits to the next. And so I've noticed like 2 or 3 people, that can tend to be challenging. And when you're formally a task force, it's required to advertise and notice and communicate with the public about the availability of meetings. If you're not a formal task force, 1 or 2 individual Human Rights Commission members could meet and talk, but it doesn't constitute a committee and have the formality of it. So there's things to think about with size, like if you think there's more people that would like to participate. And I guess I'll conclude too by just pointing out, a person doesn't have to be a member of the Human Rights Commission to be a volunteer on the task force. So that's good to think about too. But just a few thoughts in case those are helpful.
Yeah, I definitely think that's helpful. Information about like previous projects, I think that's helpful. So Laura, what I'm hearing from you is wanting to continue this, and maybe us looking at different projects. So maybe we look at what they did with that like resource gathering, and look to kind of produce that, whether that is kind of like an LGBTQIA plus like event calendar, or resources for the queer community, putting that together. It sounds like they did a lot of work on that, and maybe we can kind of continue that. Does that kind of sound like how you're feeling, Laura?
Yeah, I like that. And I also hear what Gretchen's saying about the challenge of having such a small task force. And so the fact that I really want to participate and see this go forward, I don't want that to put pressure on, say, you, Kelsey, to where, you know what I'm saying? So I really just want to be a part of whatever makes sense. So if we decide that it makes more sense to just do sort of an ad hoc committee that comes up when there's something to do, I'm okay with that too. So I guess, I know I'm being really wishy-washy, but I'm so new that I don't want to, dictate the way we go, but I do want to support whatever way makes sense.
I appreciate that, Laura. I am more than happy to continue this task force. I think especially if we get some more members, whether those are HRC members or general community members, I think that would be really helpful, because the 3 of us can only come up with so many ideas, and I'm only one person, and I only represent my own identities. So would love for other folks and other identities to be represented in this committee, and kind of discuss like what projects they want to see. So maybe either this meeting or next meeting or during the HRC meeting, we kind of do a brainstorm of ideas, projects that we can initiate or be a part of. So then we do have work, because I think if we we identify those projects and put in the work, I think there is a real purpose to this task force. And I think that's something that I'm kind of grappling with right now, is the purpose of this, with the Safe Spaces project kind of being moved away from this. But I think if we reestablish the purpose of creating and promoting things that support the LGBTQIA plus populations and communities, I think that would be helpful. That was a lot of rambling, but I'm going to end it there.
That wasn't rambling. And I think it was really important what you said about, having a two-person task force that without representation of the, the group that we endeavor to represent feels, we just want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. And the other thing, so that's a comment. And then I have a question. Is there a requirement of how often the task force is to meet?
This is Gretchen. I can answer that. No, it's up to the group, and it just came to fall into a monthly rhythm back when the group was founded a few years back. So no, it's really up to the group how you think the work directs. Really, our founding documents come back to chapters 8 and 97 in the Salem Revised Code, which speak to examining sources of tension, being available to help in instances of bias and discrimination. You kind of think about what's the scope of the Human Rights Commission. And then this is a particular focus with LGBTQIA plus communities, but within that broader scope. But there's no requirement about how frequent to meet.
Good question. Laura, do you have thoughts on that?
Oh, sorry. I'm on my phone, so I can't see anything. And
You're
so
good.
I feel like I just keep talking over people. But the only other thing I wanted to add, I guess, is that I hear you, Kelsey, saying that it would be good to bring this back to the full commission to hear what their thoughts are on how the task force goes forward as well. And I am in full agreement with that.
Okay, great. We'll definitely bring that up to the larger group at our meeting. Talking about additional projects or ideas, Laura, Gretchen, do you have any kind of things floating around in your brain that you could see the task force taking on or would like to?
Well, what Gretchen had mentioned about and you also kind of mentioned it too, but what the task force had done before with getting feedback to understand what the needs and wants are of the community, I think that would be a natural kind of, as we kind of look at how the task force operates and look at what direction we want to go next. I feel like that would be a really worthy project to kind of get the temperature, see if, are things the same? Are they different? Are the needs different? That's something that I think would have a lot of value. Maybe like a survey monkey. I don't know how we would do it, you know what I mean? But something would be cool.
I could bring up, Laura, that dovetails really well with what the Human Rights Commission's other subcommittee was just talking about, the awareness task force. They're preparing to do the annual survey that we do. And they were just asking themselves what questions or particular data points would be particularly useful for the Human Rights Commission. And you might have questions for this particular identity, like maybe what are barriers to reporting discrimination, or But that there's a survey mechanism that's going to be coming available here pretty quickly. So we could be thinking of questions to ask. I know the task force was one of the types of questions that the survey asks is about if people have experienced discrimination, and they wanted to go into a bit more detail to get it a little more actionable, like, you know, is it due to sexual orientation, for example, and where was that, where did it occur? Did it occur at a place of public accommodation or employment or what have you? So that might be good information for this task force too. So there could be some relationship to that survey, I guess I'm thinking.
I think that's a great idea. I think partnering with that awareness task force and that survey and having like the survey logic be like, are you a member of this? Do you identify within this population? And then asking like those specific questions, and that can really help us have a direction on addressing the needs. So I love that idea. So maybe we can, as a group, kind of brainstorm some questions that we want to be asked. Does it sound okay if we want to, so our next meeting is this 22nd. If we want to kind of draft a couple of questions, Gretchen, is it possible for us to make like a shared Google Doc to share among the committee?
I'm afraid it's not.
Okay.
That's one of the interesting things about public access is a shared Google Doc would be basically deliberating without people being able to access it. But you can certainly, like, you could throw me your ideas, I can put them together and then publish them as part of your next meeting. And that would absolutely be fine.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That could work.
Yeah. Laura, does that sound good?
Scrambling for mute. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So between now and like a couple days before the 22nd, Gretchen, we will send you some questions that we have. And then, yeah, please include that in our next meeting. And then we'll kind of talk about those and then hopefully kind of solidify some ideas that we can pass off to the awareness task force. And then Gretchen, you meet with the awareness task force after this meeting, correct?
I do, not today because of our unusual night.
Yeah.
We met last week, but yes, typically they're directly following each other. So that'll work perfectly.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Okay. All right. I feel this energy, some new energy coming in. So I love that. I am satisfied with this topic, the discussion of the task force structure. Gretchen or Laura, do you have anything else that you want to add?
This is Laura. Nothing more to add. Thank you for welcoming me. This was a great conversation. I
so appreciate you being here. I'm very excited to have you. Okay, so safe spaces. Gretchen, I'm wondering, do you have any updates from Chemeketa?
Well, sure. Thank you. I know this recent cohort launched. We sent the word out, including to the Human Rights Commission, and I heard of a couple of commissioners that were looking at potentially participating. I don't know if they actually were able to, but they were expressing plans and interest to do so. So that's good. I was looking back over our last minutes and noticed one of the next steps for moving forward would be to post information on our webpage, and I haven't completed that yet. So that's a task that I should do, is to create that linkage. If that's something the task force would like to see, I can create that linkage to let people know about the program. And then try to think of other tables or places to be able to share the information as well.
Is there something that we can do to help you with that? Whether it's like developing that content or brainstorming other venues to share it at?
I think certainly both would be welcome. Like if I imagine, though, it'll be fairly straightforward to share. We'll want to use some words from the Shemeketa's page to help make sure we're speaking accurately about what they're doing. If there was a thought or perspective from a member of the commission, that would be delightful, like to be able to add a quotation, from one of you, for example, like almost a little news story, like, hey, this is out here and here's why we think this matters. I mean, I think that would be a really cool value add if you had a thought about that or wanted to share something that we could quote, for example. I think that would be cool.
I'm wondering if maybe at the HRC meeting, if we want to ask to see if someone who is in the program, I know I would like to take it, but I couldn't this cohort. Also, since their meetings are on Wednesday, that's get a little tricky for us. But yeah, if someone is doing it, we can check with them to see if they would be willing to kind of give us a quote. But I would be happy to. Laura, I don't know if you would be interested in doing so.
I know this is about, I missed a couple of keywords, I think. I know we're talking about the Shemeketa class, the culture, is it the cultural one?
Mm-hmm.
And I am interested in taking it, but was there a different task there?
Just giving some quote about why we think that it's important for individuals and eventually businesses, hopefully, or organizations, to be a part of that cohort. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we were chatting about.
Okay. And you're asking if I would be interested in being part of that?
Yeah, providing a quote. Just no pressure. Yeah. Like you don't have to be. I think we can. We have a lot of people that we can pull from.
Oh. No. If that was a direct ask for me to come up with a quote, I would love to do that.
Okay.
and then you can put your input on the quote. But I'd be glad to draft something.
Okay.
The quote.
It can be like a communal quote from the LGBTQIA plus Intersectional Task Force.
Yeah, but that is true. That could be on the web, and that would be good, and we could potentially share that through other means as well. Good.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe should I just work on that and then email that to Kelsey, you, and Gretchen?
Yeah, that sounds good. And then I can also kind of email Gretchen, and then we can workshop it next meeting.
Okay. Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, let me just write that down so I don't forget.
And while you're doing that, you do make a good point that Wednesday was a conflict for the commissioners who participate in our task forces. And so maybe people might consider, do we want to be on a different night so that there's not a conflict anymore? That's another possibility. It's just changing the time of the meetings or the day of the meetings, however it supports people the best.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. Great. Okay, so we have some action items between now and next meeting. So sending a quote about the cultural competency program to Gretchen, survey questions to Gretchen, and then things we're bringing up to the HRC, discussing a possible date change for the task force and the meetings if folks want to do the cultural competency certificate, bringing up that we want to participate in the survey with the awareness task force, and brainstorming any project ideas. So any other action items that we discussed?
Not that I see. Nice job, Kelsey.
This helps me remember things. Okay. So member remarks and announcements. Do we have anything? I know I don't have anything. Laura, Gretchen, do you have anything?
No, nothing.
Okay. Well, short and sweet. Yeah, I'm really excited about this energy. Laura, I really appreciate you coming in and kind of hitting the ground running. Gretchen, I always appreciate your leadership. You are such an awesome liaison and support. So thank you both. And I think with that, I think we can close our meeting.